Greetings, friends. I want to tell you about two outrageous incidents that occurred this past Saturday, October 30th. I need to give you some context first. So I showed up at Queen's Park around 12:45 p.m. To see the protest there, the Freedom Rally or whatever it is. There were only about 75 people there. It was a constant on-off drizzle all day long. Wasn't really enough to soak you, but enough to make it somewhat, well, it wasn't really that bad, but it's going to turn a lot of people away. But certainly a very big contrast from a year ago, where in the fall we had like thousands of people showing up at Yonge and Dundas Square. But I'll get to that because something actually was happening at that location too. So I wouldn't march, but with such a small number of people, but they moved along and they're sorry group of people. But I'm not saying it's necessarily a bad thing to do that, but it wouldn't be my decision, but I went along because there's literally no one left in the park and some of the people I knew were going. So we all ended up at Yonge and Dundas Square, where there were three separate events, protests going on. First, there was this dog pit bull, Free Blue. Blue is some pit bull or who's in a kennel, I think. So it has something to do with the pit bull ban or banning on breeding certain dogs. And there were dog lovers there with their dogs. And they were about 150 of these people, so they outnumbered us. Then across the square, there was an event put on by The Line Canada, that shady organization, that strange organization. And Lamont Daigle was there. I hadn't seen that guy in like over a year. I heard that, I didn't see this directly, but people were saying he has bodyguards now and he has a knife. So I can't verify that directly, but I did see him. He looked tired. He just looked tired. I caught a few of their speakers, but not much. I was curious. Like, their people were about 200, so they outnumbered us. Again, the march that I was on, who knows what happened at that point. I never went back to Queen's Park. Maybe they tried to continue, but some of us just left at that point. So now the two outrageous events, I'm getting to that. The first one, they have this kid, this 8-year-old kid, white boy, speaking. And he's talking about how he's fighting the mask at school. How he's, well, I don't know exactly, but he's awake to the reality of the mask being oppressive, and he was sharing his story, and then he was saying some things about how we have to defeat communism and all this stuff. Which it's like, that's not the outrageous thing. That's just an observation that I thought was silly, because any kid, if it's on the other side or our side, it's like they're just absorbing from their parents or the people around them who are giving them things to say, and they believe it because that's what the people around them believe. So putting a kid up there, to say those things, it's silly. But I'm not against the idea of having kids, and it's good. It was good to see that they were getting obviously some families out. That's not to say I don't really trust The Line at all, and here's one reason why. Because before the kid was done talking, some lady, I guess she was one of the organizers or leading personalities, was encouraging the kid to say F Trudeau, but not just say F, say the F word. And the kid was like, "Oh, I don't want to use that word." He said twice that he didn't want to do it, and she egged him on, and the crowd egged him on, and then he did it. He said, "F, Trudeau," but he said it aloud, and the crowd cheered immediately. The crowd cheered, and I just thought this was outrageous, and my friend also thought it was not good. Like, that lady who did that, someone needs to take her aside and tell her, like, what are you doing? Honestly, like, are you completely tone deaf, or are you doing this on purpose? Or because part of it's, I don't know, it's like a mixture of both, but this total stupid tone deaf degeneracy and it's a product of, it's like that stuff, you're just going to see that stuff, especially at Yonge and Dundas. Something about that place just brings out these elements. Now, so that was the first outrageous event. They didn't need to make a kid who even had the sense to know that there was something about these words that even he knows at 8 years old, and then the adults are the ones acting like kids here. So then I'm hanging around the Eaton Centre. I did go into the food court. I didn't go right into the food court, but they have it all reserved just for people who have the passport, the right passport. But some of my friends actually did go in there because there's gaps in the fence or the barrier. There's gaps, and you can walk in there, and so you don't have to line up and show your ID. But it's just the same thing as like going in without a mask. Of course, I walked in there without a mask, and all the sheep have their masks on. And then the South Asian security guard, she asked me, "Oh, sir, can you please wear a mask?" And I said, "I have a medical exemption." And she just stared at me unpleasantly. And I said, "I have a medical exemption," and I walked away. And she said nothing, but. Now that's not the outrageous. I'm giving you probably more context than you need. Basically, later, some people that I knew called me and told me that there had been an incident where and they said, come. There's like some guys being arrested, some black guys being arrested. That's what I heard. So I come down there. I go to the other side of the Eaton Centre, on the west end. There's one of the west exit points right where there's this like Anglican church, which is a totally corrupted, taken over church, like the whole institution, taken over by liberalism and all the degenerate elements. So that's the location, and there all I see is some 7 or 8 of my people. I don't know all of them. I know some of them. And they're gathered there, and then there's 2 cops talking to this tall black man, questioning him or hearing his story, and he's whining and saying about how this white lady was going to assault him. And so the story, of course, it's biased from my side, from the people I know, but the story I can report to you is that they were walking through the Eaton Centre, 7, 8, or 9 of them, and then that guy accosted them first because it's saying like, "Hey, why aren't you wearing a mask?" And then he called her a white bitch, and then apparently he was really actually like harassing her, like not like, I guess not quite physically, but it was enough that the security were called, and then the police got involved. And then so again, I can't give you the whole story, but the police, the 2 cops, one of them was Asian, one of them was, I guess, brown, both wearing black masks, with this guy outside. And this guy's just going on and like talking about, I couldn't hear everything he was saying, but loud, he was speaking loud enough, and he was so emotional and animated, talking about oppression, his oppression, and I heard white people this and that. I heard it a few times, and I just knew right away this is someone who just doesn't like white people. That's all that this is. And maybe this is going to wake more of us up. And in our group, we had some Asian people. We even had someone in our group who was like, I guess black or Caribbean or something like. So it's like, but obviously our group is going to be more white. That's just how. In fact, all those protests. I neglected to tell you one thing earlier. There was a Sudanese protest that showed up. The third protest. There were like 2,000 of them protesting for against the military dictatorship in their home country in Sudan, I guess it's regular Sudan, not South Sudan. And there's like, they have all their Sudanese flags, and they're all one ethnic group, and it's like again, they're not regulars, so who knows if they're gonna be, but still, even if it's a temporary thing, it does show you that there's their nationalism and their unity in time of need, whereas all the white people are splintered, doing stupid things like dog lovers here. And I'm not saying that's not a bad cause, but they're not united. They're doing this thing, the lion's doing its thing, animosity between the different freedom groups, suspicion, and just not on the same page. And then you get like these like totally outnumbered, all of it like totally outnumbered by like 2,000 Sudanese just coming in there. And that's a small group. Like the Chinese could do the same thing and outnumber us like 4,000 to 1 with their marches. Even the ones who don't like the CCP, even the Chinese who are like the Falun Gong, even they would like outnumber us 4,000 to 1. But I'm getting ahead of myself. But I'm giving you the context. So back to this incident. The police let another woman in next to the guy. Like, apparently she wasn't a witness to the original thing. She's also of the same racial background as this guy. I heard that she was a BLM person, and from what I heard, it sounded like. So basically, the police weren't following protocol. You're not supposed to allow someone in there when they're trying to get the story from the suspect, from or at least one of the parties involved in this incident. So then the lady who was being harassed, who made the call and wanted to press charges, this white lady, she was trying to get in touch with the police to get them bring a supervisor down, but I don't think that ended up happening. And after 20 minutes, the cops ended up letting the guy walk away. Big surprise. Big surprise. So maybe that'll start to wake people up a little bit over here. Hasta luego, amigos.